All right, folks, me again, sorry. I volunteered for the MUTCD presentation. Somebody volunteered me for this one. I'm not sure who. We couldn't really track it down. So thanks, everybody. I was asked to speak by somebody about pedestrian and bicycle safety, some of the data from Delaware, and what we are trying to do to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety. So start with thanking Whitman Reckhart for helping put this presentation together for me. So these are the things I'm going to go over in this presentation. The Strategic Highway Safety Plan, an overview of that plan, pedestrian safety, several things in that area, and then bicycle safety, and then forge ahead from there. So SHSP stands for Strategic Highway Safety Plan. This is something that every state has. It's a federally mandated plan. You can see our history there. Our first plan was adopted in 2006. And we adopted our latest plan right at the end of 2015. So we're in the middle of evaluating that plan. We're going to have some meetings this spring and summer, checking our performance measures, seeing what we said we were going to do, what are we doing, and what more we need to do. And then probably about this time next year, we'll start on our 2020 plan. Our overall goal is to reduce fatalities and serious injuries. Towards zero deaths is our motto there. I think there's a couple competing themes out there nationally. I think towards zero deaths is the AASHTO recognized motto, as opposed to some you'll hear Vision Zero. That's another one out there. It all means the same thing. We want to trend towards zero fatalities. On the left there are all the various different categories that we review each time we develop one of these plans. The ones that are circled in green are the ones that are our emphasis areas that we're using. So you can see, I'm not going to go through them all, but the little blue line is fatalities and the yellow is serious injuries. And you can see that of our emphasis areas, that accounts for 94% of the fatalities on our roadways. Just because something is not in an emphasis area doesn't mean that we're not doing, some part of DelDot's not doing something on that. You'll hear, I'm going to go over pedestrian information first, but then you'll see that we're doing a lot of things in the bicycling area. And again, there's other areas we're certainly putting a lot of effort into heavy vehicles. We put a lot of effort into we're going to be, on head-on crashes related to new median guardrail type projects, and certainly our partner agencies like state police or Office of Highway Safety spend a lot of time on things like distracted driving. Here's our overall fatality numbers are the blue bars, and the serious injury numbers the left axis are the fatality numbers. The right side is the numbers of serious injuries. So you can see from the mid-2000s to 2013 or so, we had a nice downward trend on fatalities. That's kind of popped back up again, hovering right around the 120 range now. The 2017 numbers, last I looked, the 2017 number was 120 also. Sometimes there's late fatalities, so that number could go up a couple. And you can see kind of the serious injuries, generally a downward trend, which is obviously a good thing. So like I said, I'm going to start talking about pedestrian safety. Here's our pedestrian data from 2007 through 2016. Looks like we changed our colors there on this one. So the yellow is the fatalities and the blue are the serious injuries. So that number you can see varies anywhere from in the teens up into the 30s. And unfortunately, that number has kind of trended in an upward direction in recent years. Briefly mention that our national trends for both total fatalities and pedestrian fatalities generally is matching the national trend. So Delaware trends generally matching the Delaware trends. Here's another way of looking at the data. This is fatalities per population. per 100,000 population in particular. This is something that, honestly, until probably 5-6 years ago, really, we never looked at this stat before, ever. It's just not a stat that we usually use. Most of the time when we're looking at fatality or crash data, we're looking at either the raw numbers or we're looking at a number per VMT, per vehicle miles traveled, or fatalities per million vehicle miles traveled. So everything in our world that we've ever been trained as traffic or highway or safety engineers has been per mile traveled of vehicles. So of course that's not an applicable stat for pedestrians. We don't have anything similar for pedestrians. We don't have any kind of usage data that we know for the state of Delaware. How many pedestrian miles walked were there in Delaware? There's nothing like that. So, so this other, doing it per population is a different way of looking at it. And unfortunately, Delaware's numbers, you can see the maximum state rate for year, several years there, Delaware is leading the nation as the highest fatality rate per population. If anybody tells you they know why that is, they're lying. Nobody knows why that is. You can throw a lot of different theories at the wall there, but none of them have any solid backing behind them. My best guess is that because we are, if this is even a right term, we're a very suburbanized state. So we're small, obviously, but we don't have like a New York City that is a very low-speed, highly urbanized environment. We have a large chunk of our state that's very suburban, Route 13, right out here between here and Dover. Route 13 south of Wilmington, Route 40, Kirkwood Highway. So that's my best guess, is that we have a lot of high-speed, multi-lane, divided highways with a lot of pedestrian generation going on along those highways. Here's some trends. I'm not going to go through all these, but the percentage, almost 70% in Newcastle County, higher likelihood of a male as opposed to a female. Often in the late afternoon to the early or to the end of the evening. Various stats there, which again, these will all be online eventually. And then part of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan is that we look at the data, and then our partner agencies, which we have a lot of partners involved. Many different sections of DelDot are involved in developing the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And the three main partner agencies at the state level are DelDot, Office of Highway Safety, and State Police. From the federal level, we have FHWA and NHTSA are the two main federal partners in developing that plan. So we look at the data and we try to develop strategies to, again, help meet the goal of reducing fatalities and serious injuries. So here are the strategies that were developed in the 2015 plan for addressing pedestrian crashes. The ones that I have highlighted in red are the ones that are kind of DelDot is the lead on looking at these. So we lead the overall effort on the plan. That's really what the first one is. So infrastructure, looking at best practices. I'm going to talk a bit more now about pedestrian safety audits. That's most of the rest of my presentation on pedestrians. Another one we're trying to do a better job of in the past is not just doing something, but really doing it and seeing how well it went. So that's the before and after studies. I am not going to read through all this, but we have established in 2015 by then Governor Markell was the Delaware Pedestrian Council. This is also a multi-agency group. The folks in planning lead this thing up, and again, many other parts of DelDot are involved. So they had a lot of work in 2016 that accumulated in early 2017 with a final report. All the goals are spelled out there. Again, there was several recommendations that were made from that report. One of them was that DelDot conduct at least 3 pedestrian safety audits per year. So again, that's really what I'm going to spend some more time talking about. So pedestrian safety audits. Actually, even before the Pedestrian Council was set up, we had, again, a multi-agency group that was, we just called the Pedestrian Bike Safety Working Group. That group has been working. You can see the folks that are involved. Reviewed crash data. From that crash data, pick the corridors to work on, and then conduct these safety audits. So if you've heard the term road safety audit, that's basically what this is, but focusing specifically on pedestrian issues and to some extent bicyclist issues as well, but really a focus on pedestrian issues. You review the corridor, you develop some mapping, you look at the crash data, and you get a multi-discipline team to do a walkthrough or a drive through the corridor and try to look at things from as many perspectives as possible, not just somebody from the traffic section trying to do their thing. You try to get police. We've had representatives from Bike Delaware, from the MPOs, from Office of Highway Safety, from the various parts of DelDot. You try to get as many different groups as possible involved to try to look at it from as many different perspectives and to help develop those solutions. I think that's pretty much what I just said there, getting ahead of myself a little bit. Counts, data, crashes, the tour, and then you do, of course, you do some analysis, you develop your recommendations, and you go from there. So here's where we've done pedestrian safety audits over the last 9 or 10 years. Again, most of these have been in northern Newcastle County because that's where the bulk of our pedestrian crash problem is. Also, we kind of, we're taking credit for all the work that our agency, led by Project Development South, but our agency as a whole did on the Route 1 pedestrian project, Lewis to Rehoboth area. So you can see where all those various corridors were. Again, the common theme of every one of these is multi-lane, high-speed corridors. It's just one of the maps that we use. I know you can't see all the details, but it's, we put on an aerial, we show the crosswalks, we show the pedestrian facilities, we show where there's lighting, we highlight the crashes, like you see the little red dot there on the, up there, that's where a fatality occurred. The little green lines are pedestrian data, in other words, usage data. So you put all that together, and then this is one of the main tools we use to help develop recommendations. So the first one we've done that was in this type of a study was urban engineers helped us with this one, Route 13 study from close to the Route 40, Route 13 split up to 273. So we completed this study back in 2009. One of the things we like to do with these is that some of the short-term recommendations, we really start working on those recommendations even before the study's complete. So sometimes it can take 6 months or so to finish up a report, right? That's just what happens. You got a review process and you're tweaking it and back and forth and fixing, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. In the meantime, some of the core recommendations that we know about, they're not going to change. So we get them into our pipeline and start working on them. So before this report was even done, we already had signal designs complete. We had some signing issues already implemented. So that's one of the things that we're usually in the traffic section pushing for is, there's the big PD and bridge projects take years and years and years to get developed, and it is what it is between right-of-way and everything else. But some of these smaller things, you don't have to wait for a report to be done to start working on a signal plan. Let's get going on it. I know you can't read all that, but that's our matrix of the recommendations. And so we're tracking, what's done, what's not done. So if you can read it at all, on the right side there's a whole lot of completes. We got a lot of stuff done in a pretty short amount of time. And then there's some longer term things that still have to happen. Here's the data on Route 13, just south of 273. So, you know, I don't know that there's any clear answer on this. Obviously, it's good to see that our total pedestrian crashes are down from their high point in 2008, but we're still getting about 1 to 2 fatalities per year in this section of road. So that, you know, it's up and down. I would say we certainly haven't solved the problem. Here's another example. This is Concord Pike. Part of the reason I pull this one out is that really the PAR program is the group that's leading this effort. We in traffic have certainly been involved as well as others, but this really is being led by Tom Nichols and the PAR program. So just some of the recommendations you can see from that Concord Pike study. Some of these you'll see as common themes: ADA compliance, median and fencing, bus stops, additional signalized crosswalks. Those are some of the common themes of the types of things that we're seeing in these pedestrian safety audits. Here's another one. This one, RK&K helped our in-house staff in traffic on, is Philadelphia Pike, up from the state line all the way down to into Wilmington. So the one part in there, that little hatched area there, that section of road, via a study that was led by Project Development North, that's the section of Philadelphia Pike that we implemented a road diet on. So it took it from a 4-lane undivided to a 3-lane, so 1 lane in each direction for travel lane, the 2-way center turn lane, and bike lanes in general. That was implemented several years ago. That was very successful. So that's that one little section. So we expanded it to really the whole length of Philadelphia Pike. So, so things, again, some of the other common themes you see in these pedestrian safety audits would be additional roadway lighting, or, and again, in this case, the road diet is a good candidate. This roadway is a good candidate for expanding the road diet. Here's Route 1. I mentioned Route 1 before, so you can see the goat path there, the before and after on getting the sidewalk and the crosswalks implemented. That was there's our former fearless leader, Mr. Bott, and we had the whole blue ribbon panel going on down there that mostly recommended what we had in the works already. There were some minor tweaks to that. There's just some of the aerials, again, seeing some of the crosswalks, sidewalks, ped signals. Here's one of our pedestrian hybrid beacons, which is also known as a hawk signal. This one's at Holland Glade Road. We've been doing a lot of work on these, a lot of analysis work, again, going back to studying some of these newer things that we're doing. So we have 5 hawks up and running in Delaware right now, and every year we do updated studies of them, of how well they're working, how well drivers are complying with these new types of devices. For the Route 1 study, I am not going to try to have you figure that, but figure out all those crazy lines. But we've been looking at, so we have a lot of traffic, a lot of detection, and a lot of traffic volume data on Route 1 and a lot of our roads throughout the state. So there was we feared, and the public feared also, that by adding some of the crosswalks that we would really be reducing the capacity of Route 1. And we, after looking at it, after it's been implemented now for a couple years, we did not, there's still issues. It's Route 1, it's the beach area. Of course, it's going to be busy on a summer Saturday. But we did not really impact the travel times as significantly as we thought. On the other hand, we saw a very high increase in pedestrian usage at the crosswalks that we did install. So we saw a dramatic increase in those numbers. So I don't know if that increase is more due to more people crossing now than before. I suspect it's more towards people were crossing at worse locations and now have gotten to a place where you actually have a pedestrian signal and a traffic signal to help stop traffic to get you across the street. Here's some of the data from just the hawk we have in Dover at the Dover High School. Some of the data that we're collecting related to driver compliance with this new thing. It's dark, it's flashes, then it's red, and you know, some people don't get it and others are doing better, but the red number there is really the most important number, the amount of red light running we're getting during the walk phase, which is, you can see that number is very, very low, so that number there is a good number. Rapid Flash Beacon is another very successful tool. We had this at the Innovation Fair, so I'm not going to belabor this very much, but we've seen very high numbers on significant improvement in compliance with yielding to pedestrians at our Rapid Flash Beacons. So again, I'm not going to belabor that too much. There's some pictures of some of the various installations. This is one in Dobbinsville, which is, again, the numbers are coming out very good. And this one, it was, the center island was implemented as part of the project as well. Really, those center islands, you know, may be as important or more important than the signs and the flashing beacons. Given the pedestrian, a two-stage crossing instead of a single-stage crossing really reduces pedestrian delays, which in turn reduces the chances of a pedestrian doing something stupid, like jumping out in front of traffic. All right, forging ahead. Bicycle safety. Here's our data on bicycle safety. So the good news with bicycle crash data is that the numbers are significantly lower than the pedestrian numbers. So you can see the overall trends jump around a little bit, somewhere between 10 and 20 on the total serious injuries plus fatalities, and the fatalities somewhere usually between 0 and 5 fatalities a year on the bicycle side. As opposed to, again, our pedestrian fatalities are up in the 30 range these days. So again, trying to look at things a little bit differently than we have before, looking at bicycle fatalities per population. You can see our numbers there. And again, with our pretty low numbers, proportionately, you know, that jumps very, you know, from 2007 to 2008, we jumped from a 0. So literally, we were the best in the country. We had to be tied for best in the country, to within 1 year to the worst in the country. So with a small state, that's just the kind of thing that happens when you're looking at the numbers. So you can see our numbers in 2015. Again, it's really hard to say is that good, bad, or indifferent. Our numbers definitely higher than our surrounding states. And again, you have the same issue here as you do with the pedestrian side, that we're looking at this population stat. You don't have there's no bicycle VMT that we can compare it to. So a couple things in the bicycle front. Last year, some legislation was passed and signed into law. It was nicknamed the Bicycle Friendly Delaware Act. So it clarified some of the rules of the road. It talks about some passing laws. You're not allowed, if you didn't know this, you are not allowed to honk your horn when you're passing a bicycle now in Delaware. Also, something that was, I don't know about controversial, but we're, I think, only the second state in the country adopting something which we had previously known as the Idaho stop, because Idaho was the only state that had adopted it, and they adopted it like 20 years ago. So the law in Idaho is that a bicyclist treats a stop sign as a yield sign. So on a bicycle in Idaho forever, or for at least 20 years now, you don't have to come to a complete stop, where basically there's more to it than that, but that's basically the part of the law that got adopted in Delaware, that a bicyclist no longer has to literally come to a stop at a stop sign. You can treat it as a yield. And then the most important part really for DelDot from an engineering perspective is defined and enables DelDot to use bicycle and traffic signals. So I'll get back to bike signals in a minute, in 5 minutes or 20 seconds or less. So another part, more initiatives on this front. the folks in our planning division are leading up our blueprint for a bicycle-friendly Delaware plan. I usually just call it the bike plan. So that is an effort that they are leading that will really update. I don't remember our last bike plan is pretty old, so this is a significant update to that plan. So that should be adopted. They're on the last steps of that. I was looking at some of the recommendations the other day, and that should be wrapped up this spring. Another thing the folks in planning are really taking the lead on are these things called low-stress bike networks. So, most of the things that traffic engineers and highway engineers, we're usually working, again, on the multi-lane highways, the divided highways, the higher speed roadways, and we need to be accommodating bicyclists on those roadways, but a lot of those roads, you're only getting the top couple percentage of bicyclists are willing to be out on those types of roadways. So the idea of the low-stress bike network is to tie all the residential streets where kids are willing to ride their bikes, where parents are willing to allow their kids to ride their bikes, to better tie those low-stress networks together so that we can get more and more people riding their bicyclists, and all the good things that go with that they're getting healthier. If you can ride your bike, you're not congesting our highways with another motor vehicle trip, et cetera, et cetera. Can't believe I have a traffic presentation and I'm playing up a bridge project, but we got a nice little bridge going on up there on the industrial track Greenway. That's coming right along, so that's obviously another initiative. The whole and you all have heard plenty of presentations. You don't need me to present on that about all the different trails that we've been working on over the last 6-7 years. So that's that fits into the whole. Brianna was talking about the puzzle. The puzzle of bicycle safety is if you have more low stress networks, that's folks that are you're either getting a bicyclist off a high-speed, high-volume roadway, or you're allowing a bicyclist to make a trip that they would have otherwise made in a motor vehicle. This is another one that's being led by Project Development North. I've spent a lot of time working on this one with them as well. This is they keep changing the name of it. It was called a cycle track for a while. Now it's a separated bike facility, whatever you want to call it, but Delaware Avenue is 2 lanes eastbound in the city of Newark, and you see a lot of illegal bicycle movement where the bicyclists are going westbound, and today that's illegal. So this project would the biggest part of this project would formally implement a westbound bicycle lane on Delaware Avenue, and unfortunately, it's not as easy as it sounds. There's some geometric improvements, improving some of the corner radii that are needed. We are going to have bicycle signals on this project, and it should be a very good project. It's just it's taking a little bit longer to get done than I had originally hoped. We do have one bike signal in Delaware already. This is Route 54 down at Cape Windsor. This is a little bit of an unusual situation where we have a bypass lane on the viaduct. You can't easily turn it into a normal left turn lane. The complaint from a bicyclist perspective was they did not want to sit out in the middle of the through lane and wait to make their turn. They wanted to be over on the shoulder. There's no easy way to give them a pedestrian push button due to the guardrail, so we ended up with some thermal bicycle detection and a separate bicycle signal there. So here's another somewhat unique situation out on Kirkwood Highway, just recently implemented, where we have a new push button really just for bicyclists. I talked in the last presentation about the whether you call it a pocket bike lane or the shared bicycle right turn lane. So that's again, we've been doing this now for several years, and just officially getting it into the MUTCD. So, and I promised you, there's my accept bicycle signs. So this was a little project we had with that was brought up by the Bicycle Newark folks, and worked with the University of Delaware and City of Newark and several others where, again, we put a small contraflow bike lane on now the opposite of Delaware Avenue. Main Street is westbound. We gave them just a little short section right at College Avenue to let the bicyclists go eastbound there. So my time is up. So I'm going to get to, there's nothing earth-shattering here on the next steps. We're continuing all the things that we're talking about there and trying to keep up to speed with the best practice. That's the moral of the story there. So thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Oh, right over here.
Oh,
Over here. Hold
all the way
on.
in the back?
Hold on, let me give this to you.
All right, while Pam is taking the magic cue ball to the back, or
Who's that?
cube, let me put a
sure.
plug in for the Walkable, Bikeable Delaware Summit, which is coming up on May 3rd.
ready?
It's going to have lots of good stuff at that summit. It's usually well attended by DelDot folks and some folks from the outside as well. There should be some of these little postcards up front. Okay, Blue Cube, Shilpa.
Hey, Mark, on the statistics for your bikes and pedestrians, I didn't get to see all the information, but are we looking at how many of these bicyclists or pedestrians are under influence or distracted, texting and crossing where they're not supposed to, or, biking with the volume high? That can be part of why we're seeing an increase in crashes also. So is that?
Agree, yeah, we look at all that data. I think it was in 2016 where it was a really high proportion of the pedestrian fatalities were under the influence, like higher than usual even. So we certainly look at that. So that side of it really goes more into what Office of Highway Safety does on developing their campaigns, the click it or ticket, or those kind of campaigns that they work to try to encourage people not to do silly things like drinking and driving or distracted biking or whatever else. So yeah, we do look at those things, but they tend to end up in recommendations for Office of Highway Safety folks as opposed to us.
I have a question. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry. So, shit, what was my question? Hold on. Oh, yeah, sorry.
We can hear you, Pam.
Sorry. So with the new laws, or when you had said October of last year that the new laws are in place, is it the Bike Council, or who does that outreach to the public? Because I didn't know that they act as a yield, for a stop sign. I think most people probably don't.
So I'm going to go with the short answer is not me.
Okay.
I don't know if the Bike Council has taken on any public outreach for that, or if I know James from Bike Delaware is here. I don't know if you have anything, because James from Bike Delaware, if you haven't met him, he's the one standing up right there, and his group really was one of the lead.
He's got a bike pin on.
That put that together. So
is this weird thing working?
Yeah, it works.
If anybody wants to give us $100,000, we'd be happy to do outreach like crazy. Other than that, it costs money, right, to get these kinds of messages out to the public. We've reached out a lot to the Office of Highway Safety. They get all the money from NHTSA. They're sort of the logical agency to be leading on that.
Okay. Oh my, can you just repeat the question? You're killing me with these high heels.
you said you want to use your new toys.
I know. Oh.
Yeah, throw it.
Yeah, I can't throw it that
Give it
far.
a Nick
I'm
Foles.
not- I mean,
Come on.
No, I want to throw it to you.
One of yours.
Ready?
Oh, God, she is going to throw
You're
it.
right.
There seems to be a lot of questions about the data and the fatality rates. I guess two questions. What were some of the other reasoning behind why the rates were so high in Delaware relative to other states, some of the other theories? And then is are there any methods that other states are using to track usage of bicycles and pedestrians?
So I don't have any other theories on why Delaware is particularly high. I don't know, and nobody really knows on a lot of some of this data, whether it's pedestrians or total fatalities. Like, again, nationally, you've had some groups that tried to figure out, well, why did fatality numbers increase to the mid-2000s and then went down and then kind of bounced up the last couple of years? And some folks have shown a lot of things that it's not. Like, there's been some good studies to show that it's not just the economy. Like, the economy might be part of it, but that's not the full answer. So, like, even on something like that, like national fatality numbers, nobody really knows why they bounce around the way they do, or why they trend up and trend down and trend. And so, let alone in our little state, you know, why the numbers are where they are, or again, is that even a good measure? You know, I don't know how many, you know, for the size of the state that we have, I don't know off the top of my head what, you know, proportion of visitors we get compared to other states. You know, is that one of the reasons why that number looks bad for us, and maybe it's not? I don't know. So I don't have any other grand theories on that one. And then, sorry, what was the other part of your question?
It was tracking usage of.
Planning is working on that, and I don't know if there's anybody from planning that could speak to that, because I know we are trying to do a much better job of counting pedestrians and bicyclists than in years past, but I am not aware of any kind of like a global number. Like we can pull out of our DelDot fact book the VMT for the state of Delaware in 2016 or whatever. So I don't know if we're anywhere near coming up with a number like that for pedestrians and bicyclists, but I know planning's working on it. Got another one. Yeah, all the way back to Pam. Come on. I didn't tell you to wear heels. All right, yell it out, Danny. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes. The level of traffic stress. Yes, so that's the thing that that's another one that planning's really taking the lead on. They are developing the mapping, the GIS tools to, you know, what you see. I'm not going to go back to that map, but what you see is when you look at a map, you see a lot of like subdivisions that are all green, and it's like that's where, you know, internal to your subdivision, your kids can ride their bikes around and you feel pretty safe about it. And then, but they're islands. Like, they don't go anywhere. It's just like they can go to their friend's house and that's it. They can't get to the Walmart or to across the street or anywhere else. So it's really what planning's going to be working on is GIS tools to try to find ways to get bridges between those islands. So that's really, so I'm not sure how far along they are with getting the whole state mapped out. I know they've been focusing on certain areas like 5 Points down at the beach and up in Newark. So ultimately, I think that's a planning tool that will then recommend projects to say, if you just build a path, this half-mile path from here to here, you get your percentage of people that can not be out in cars on the road will go up by this amount. And then, so it's not just seeing it on a map, but then it's putting data behind that to see you can predict how many trips you will reduce on the highway system. So
some of the Scandinavian countries are investing in a big way in modal separation. Is that something that they've seen, you know, good results from, and is that something we should be considering for Delaware?
So I have no idea. There's differing opinions on that. There's some European countries that are doing their naked roadways. They take everything down. All the things that I work on every day, signing, striping, traffic signals, they got rid of them all. And they just let chaos ensue. And so when chaos ensues, the motor vehicles can't go more than 5 miles an hour. So they don't kill anybody. So they run into people all the time, but they never kill anybody. So that's one theory, one theory that our friends across the pond use is just allow chaos to ensue. The other is more of a separated of don't put the bicyclists or the pedestrians out on the main roads, completely separate them. I don't know what the answer is. I'm a traffic engineer. We're doing the best we can. We are working on both sides of it, I would say. Again, we're spent a lot of effort working on what's the best kind of striping to put on a shared right turn lane that's out on a multi-lane, high-speed arterial roadway. We've had this argument with, where's Drew? If Drew's here, we've had arguments with developers on whether we should be putting bike lanes out on the high-speed arterials. Now, I'll tell you, I can't recall any bicycle fatalities in any of our bike lanes in recent years. They've always been at intersections or on roadways with no shoulders, or even like 2-lane rural roadways with shoulders. I'm not aware of any fatalities recently that were like in a bike lane. I don't know what the right answer is on that one. Thanks for giving me a hard one to wrap it up there. Thanks, boss. Pam, I can go on all day.
Yeah, we need to wrap it up.
All right, thanks.